Hi guys, welcome to Tech Function 101. Today's guest is someone special whose work sits at the intersection of engineering, nature, and technology. I'm very excited to welcome Amber Garrett, a geohazard engineer at Enbridge, and someone who's been an amazing mentor of mine throughout the past few months. Amber earned her Bachelor's of Engineering degree in water resource from University of Guelph and is now a professional engineer in Alberta. And from working with rivers to pipelines and using modeling tools and data, she brings real world impact to every project she works on. And in this episode, we are going to dive into Amber's journey, how she got into this field, what it's really like working in unpredictable environments, and how she balances technical skills with collaboration, mentorship, and big picture thinking. So let's get started. So Amber, I've already learned a lot from you, but for those listening in, could you walk us through how you really got into engineering initially and what really led you specifically into water resource and geohazard?
Of course. And yeah, thanks for the invite. It's really great to be able to share some of my skills and my path with other aspiring engineers and other junior engineers. I would say that I took a pretty convoluted path to get to engineering, but it really is about the journey and not necessarily the destination, which I'll probably touch on a little bit later as well. So, right out of high school, I was very interested in health and fitness. And my initial plan through university was human kinetics. I thought I would do a master's in physiotherapy, maybe go into research. And during my third and fourth year, I found myself gravitating mostly towards biomechanics and ergonomics classes. And after graduating, even I was drawn to engineering to study more about prosthetics and orthotics. So after about a year and a half working as a kinesiologist, I decided to enroll in a second undergraduate degree in biomedical engineering. And now, during my engineering degree, I found it pretty difficult to find an internship in the biomedical field. So I ended up taking a 4-month term at an environmental consulting company. It was this first co-op that opened my eyes to the diverse world of environmental work. And this is where I say you learn something from every experience. So go into things with an open mind because you might surprise yourself. I was initially really disappointed to take that job outside of biomedical engineering, but I came away with a whole new career path that's kind of shaped who I am.
Amazing. So I know you mentioned a little bit about like your first internship and you graduated from Gulf with a degree in water resource engineering. So how did your university like experience shape your path into really finding like what you were interested in and like where you are today?
Yeah, so I think initially the major draw to water resources engineering over biomedical was that it wasn't in a lab or an office. I got to problem solve out in the field, no 2 days or two projects for the same. It was that curiosity that sparked my interest in water resources engineering specifically, and then I've never looked back from there. I've always particularly loved learning, and then the atmosphere and the culture at the University of Guelph was very welcoming, small town. Class sizes were small, the professors and TAs were really approachable. So I came from a pretty small town and a family where no one else had gone to university before me. So I didn't really know what to expect out of my university experience at all. I went into my science degree with no expectation and no plan, but also kind of no real confidence. And I think it was this first degree and completing the science degree before my engineering degree that gave me the confidence to do something more difficult and challenge myself a little bit. Overall, I would say a takeaway from me would be to enjoy your time at university, work hard, get good grades, but also do the things you love to do and branch out from just academics alone.
Yeah, and that's amazing to hear as well, because especially when you come from like a small town, the first one going to university, I think there's a lot of challenges that people don't realize, but it's just like you finding your way through by yourself. A lot of times, like you don't get as many support, so that's wonderful.
Yeah. And I think like also you don't like doing things like I would say your network helps you in unexpected ways. So that first engineering opportunity I got actually came from somebody that I knew at a gym that I went to. And so yeah, the community will rally around you kind of wherever you are if you're willing to reach out to people.
So your work involves like pipelines, rivers, natural systems, and much more, which sounds like a pretty unique combination. So what's one of the most like exciting or surprising challenges that you've faced so far, like in your journey while you were working in this intersection?
I agree that that's also one thing that's always fascinated me working in civil engineering is this marriage between infrastructure and the natural world. And it's one that I get to work with every day. It's one of the few fields where I think you want your work to fly under the radar a little bit. You know, you've done a good job of everything just works. You turn the tap on and water comes out, or you flip your fireplace on and the gas is there. But also, I think one of the challenges working with natural systems is also that line between protecting the infrastructure that we have and also protecting the environment. And so in my job, it's kind of developing these hybrid solutions to be able to compromise in those scenarios. So you have your hard engineering solutions only when it's absolutely necessary for vital infrastructure. And then otherwise, can you work with like softer vegetated solutions when you have those options?
Very cool. So what's something about your current job that most people would be a little surprised to learn about?
I think, like in a lot of engineering fields specifically, which is why we go into engineering, is that there's well-known standards of practice, there's books to follow, there's calculations that you can rely on, and you know that these are facts. And I think, especially environmental engineering, that's not usually the case. So in materials such as like concrete or steel, you know that there's stress-strain relationships. We have a good idea of when things are going to fail. But with river engineering design, natural materials are often used, wood debris, vegetated soil wraps. These are things that are more difficult to calculate, but they're also things that get stronger over time as things grow. So there are a lot of hydraulic modeling and calculations involved, but there's also that relying on previous installations, having that monitoring data to know how different structures might behave long term. That's pretty interesting. It's a really good kind of balance between calculations as well as experience, as well as a little bit of arts and science in there.
So moving on, are there any like specific tools, technologies, or trends in your industry that you're particularly excited about going into the future? Like, where do you see the biggest innovations happening in the next like 5 or 10 years moving forward? Like, I know you mentioned stuff about like AI, like into incorporating in your field, where you learned about this like in some of the conferences that you went to. So if you want to share a little bit about that.
For sure. I'm going to start going like full engineer with this one boring answer first and then move into a little bit more of where I see AI going. But I'm going to say that I think the biggest innovations moving forward are going to be how we learn how to manage and leverage our data. In our field, and I'm sure with a lot of other engineering fields, we're collecting increasing amounts of data. Um, I think there's so much potential to be able to pool different data sources, extract trends and relationships from all of this data. But I think at the moment we're at a place where this data is mostly overwhelming and not in a form that can be easily ingested or worked with. So I think there will be a place for AI. Machine learning could help with a lot of the tasks that I do day to day, sentencing our IMU data, detecting strain features. It could also be used to develop better precipitation and flow forecasting models so that we have more time to respond to high flow events at higher risk sites. But I think we definitely need to get our data managed better first before we can move on to really being able to get the full benefits of AI.
Yeah, that's great to hear as well. So as my mentor, like you've helped me a lot, like understanding about like how technical skill can actually connect with real world impact. So for the students who might be like a little bit overwhelmed or like just starting their journeys, how do you recommend building confidence with tools like technical tools, even tools like Civil 3D, GIS, or any other modeling tools?
For sure. I mean, I do use technical tools every day in some capacity, and I think most engineers do. When I was in the consulting space, I would frequently use Civil 3D, like you said, for river design, GIS, for figure prep, modeling softwares like HEC-RAS, for hydraulic analysis, or HEC-HMS for hydrological modeling. Although I got some introduction to these programs in university, I would say the majority of the skills were acquired on the job. And my biggest tip would be to feel like you're not behind if you don't graduate with these skills. I would say the majority of junior engineers don't have a great grasp on even which tools they're going to need to use in whatever job they decide to take. But do take advantage of the resources available to you and make an effort to learn. Most of the companies that I've worked for provided training sessions for the tools we frequently used, and they also had other recorded videos or how-to guides. And another recommendation might be to find a mentor within the company that you're working for that might be able to recommend which tools might be most beneficial for you and how to improve your skills. So yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you as well. Like even personally coming from a programming background and in engineering, like I started my journey just by learning off of YouTube. And like in high school, coming into high school, just like with the curiosity. And even like going into the market, I think in the future, like it's almost impossible as like someone in like computer engineering to know every single programming language out there. And so I definitely agree with you. Like it's all about just learning, and even like after you graduate in engineering, I feel like it's all about just like continuously learning throughout your whole journey.
Oh yeah,
So that's great.
for
Yeah.
sure. I would say there's still moments where I'm like Googling how to do something, even just in Excel or little GIS tips and tricks. You're never going to know everything. Um, Definitely, yeah, there's always going to be maybe more experts in the field at the company that you work for that you can reach out to. But yeah, we have so much information at our fingertips now. And
So moving on, one thing that I really found inspiring was how you make critical decisions with data modeling and like your field input. So could you walk us through like that process, especially like how when you're accessing like pipeline risk and other things?
for sure. I would say probably my biggest day-to-day task is the continuous process of monitoring our program. So identification of different sites, assessing those sites, classifying, and then monitoring these sites. So for each water crossing that's identified, we complete a desktop assessment, and then we classify it into what we call a response level, which kind of includes a little bit of what the risk is associated with that site. So this response level dictates how a site's monitored, how often that site's monitored, and if it would need to be mitigated in the future. So we have about 23,000 water crossing sites across North America. So it's a full-time job managing this inventory of sites, keeping track of the assessments and surveys being completed in the field, and documenting all of these. So it's a big job. A lot of our forecasting, site management, inspection, and survey data is housed in a geohazard specific software that we use. So having this management system allows us to build dashboards, track metrics for everything. So we know which assessments and surveys are being performed, also which flood alerts we've had on which sites and things like that.
Especially when you have like thousands of sites, like I can't imagine like the amount of data that you would have. So I think like those tools would definitely be great for help.
Yeah, super helpful. Also, having like a set of standard operating procedures that are frequently reviewed is also key so that somebody else can kind of come in, step in, know where you're at on your program, and how to take that on.
Interesting. So I'm sure that you have had a chance to lead or at least be a part of like many large scale projects, working with like so many experts, other engineers, ecologists, regulators. So how do you manage your own task when you're working in this and to like stay top of the project planning and make sure that everyone stays aligned? Like, can you share maybe a challenge that you might have faced and how did you overcome this?
For sure. I think the geohazards realm is inherently multidisciplinary, which is kind of exciting. Like I'm a hydrotechnical specialist, but I consult regularly with colleagues that are geotechnical specialists, coding specialists, strain specialists, welding specialists. Managing the program day to day, I often work with other consultants that help with parts of our program, like our assessments, or vendors that collect survey data, permitting agencies, environmental specialists, etc. So I think it's always a difficult process to make sure that, let's say, the execution of our projects does go seamlessly. I think time management is something that's really specific person to person, and then what works well for one person won't necessarily work for someone else. I keep a really detailed work and personal calendar, but I put really important reminders and important dates in both calendars. One of the biggest tools that I use is Microsoft OneNote and Copilot to like pull different things from it. I have tabs for different projects, alerts, vendors. I keep running notes for different consulting meetings, a to-do list, and all my notes for professional development reviews and goals and such that I can check in throughout the year as well. So I find that really beneficial for me, but it's taken me a while to find something that works for me as well. I think most of the challenges I've faced in dealing with large multidisciplinary projects would be working with people who approach conflict or communication differently than I do. Learning about different communication styles helps understand where people are coming from and how to approach potential conflicts if they do arise. I think focusing on shared goals is probably one of the most important things to keep in mind. In large river restoration projects, everyone does want a stable end product that ideally improves habitat. And although the designers, the biologists, and the regulators might not see eye to eye on everything, I think everyone is just doing their jobs to ensure that that happens. And that's something to keep in mind, even when tensions are running high or deadlines are being missed and things like that.
Yeah, and even like from a student point of view, like even while you're going through engineering university, like we have come across like so many team working projects and skills. And so I think team working is definitely a big part of engineering. And it's great to like hear about all these tools that you're using into your day-to-day life to like stay so organized. What's one skill or field like outside of the traditional engineering, like either communication or stakeholder engagement that has like helped you personally a lot in your career?
I think empathy and resilience are both underrated traits or skills. I think they might be considered traits, but I think they can also be learned and fostered. So we can put them in the skill category for now. I would say empathy allows you to relate to people, build better relationships, which can be not only beneficial for building your network, but can also improve your mental well-being at work. I mean, you're there every day, potentially 40 hours a week. And so, yeah, learning to work with and build some empathy and relate to the people around you is super important. And I think resilience is also something that allows for a more positive outlook. Again, when there's pressing deadlines or big presentations coming up, just reminding yourself that you've made it through everything up till now and you'll get through this too is a good outlook to have.
Yeah, and that's a great like attitude I like as well. Like in the past as well, like you've always gone through like struggles, and I think like while you're in a situation that like in a challenge, it does seem like really big, but then after a while, like when you think back to it, it's really like, oh, I went through this, so definitely I can go through the challenges too.
And I mean, it's important to put yourself in those situations too, because you do grow from them. So don't shy away from those difficult situations. They'll
Yeah,
help
for
you grow
sure.
resilience in the future.
Yeah, definitely agree. So moving on, like what's something about engineering specifically that still kind of excites you to this day, like even after all these years?
I mean, I'm going to go like nerdy engineering on this question as well and say that there's just always new things to learn. And I think as a lifelong learner, there's like no shortage of things to be excited about. There's always new tools coming out, new research to get involved with.
Yeah, I like that answer actually, because like a lot of people that like a lot of students that I've also talked to, they come into engineering just about like they're just because they know that it opens up like so many more opportunities, and there's so many like great opportunities that they can take on even after graduating. But I think like just finding out what you really like to do and just learning every day is a big part of it too. So let's go back a little bit in your journey. So switching from consulting to working at Enbridge now, I'm sure you must have come across like some changes. So what was the biggest shift for you, and what have you learned about yourself through this transition?
I think, yeah, the transition from consulting to industry is a pretty common one. I think starting in consulting as a young engineer is actually quite valuable. It allows you to get experience in technical work, often using the most cutting edge tools or methods. You get a lot of experience report writing, presenting. Often consulting is also focused on billing time to projects, tracking financial metrics. So you get a good start project managing, learning to manage your own time effectively as well. Um, but I think in consulting, you're a little more narrow focused on the projects you're currently working on. And so I think moving to industry has allowed me to think more big picture. Now I work on a really expansive geographical area. I manage quite a large program instead of just individual projects. Being on the client side, it's interesting because it gives me more perspective on how different methods might solve the same problem. I review a lot of technical reports. And as a former designer, it might not be exactly the way I would have designed it, but if it's fit for purpose, it's likely not wrong. It's just different. And so being able to get a different perspective on problem solving has been pretty interesting. I think for me, the move was helpful both personally and professionally. I'm a bit of an introvert at heart, and so it brought me out of my comfort zone to have to build a new network of friends and colleagues in a new city, at a new company. And also made me realize that I'm more adaptable than I may have originally thought. So,
That's what I mean, like engineering is all about, like in my perspective, like especially as a student, I think for now, like for me personally, engineering is currently just about like learning about myself through like while finding what I like doing. Like from the mentorship sessions that we also talked about, you have went to like so many conferences, like you went across the world, like been to places, conferences, talked to so many people. And so I think, yeah, just putting yourself out there is a great thing. And it also helps you like learn from other people and make so many connections as well in your industry. So, as someone who mentors young engineers and students, what qualities do you most admire in early career professionals? And when it comes to like internship and junior roles that I'm sure you've seen at Enbridge, what makes someone like stand out or be remembered in a positive way?
Ah, there's so many things. I admire early career professionals that I would say first off have a really good work ethic, but are passionate about learning. Um, I know that you're not coming into the workforce knowing all the software tools or even some of the basic engineering principles, but those are all teachable if you're willing to learn. And so I think just that passion for learning and the willing to put the work in to learn.
Even when you're going through like the interview process and everything, I'm sure like recruiters can actually see whether or not you're actually passionate about like the role that you're applying for. So I think that's also really good to like showcase.
Definitely. And I also respect those who try to problem solve before coming to me with a question. I like someone might come and say, "Hey, I'm not quite sure what to do here, but this is how I was thinking about maybe going about solving it." And it shows that they've put the effort in. And
Mhm.
even if you might not have come to the correct conclusion, you're willing to put the work in, the effort in, and try and solve that problem on your own first. So
So moving on to the next question. So for students who are still exploring their interests, like myself, how can they gain hands-on exposure to some like real-world engineering challenges, especially if they're interested in like water resource or environmental systems?
I know that there's some volunteer opportunities with organizations like in Calgary specifically, where I'm based out of. There's Trout Unlimited or the Calgary River Valleys, which is a stewardship organization. And they allow you to get involved in things like fish rescues, riparian restoration work, counting spawning areas, or other watershed education activities. And these are activities that might also get you meeting with others who might work in the field and can offer some insight. So a lot of biologists, geomorphologists, watershed scientists, or engineers that I know often go out and volunteer for these organizations. The Trout Unlimited fish rescues are especially exciting because you can put your waders on, go catch some fish, and see what's in the irrigation canals. If you work for a larger company, there might also be opportunities to split time between other groups or get involved in field days where some extra hands might be necessary just to see if it's something that you like to do. I know a lot of companies have more young engineer programs where they do allow you to kind of float between roles to be able to find something that you might be passionate about or more excited about. So I would say, yeah, if you're still a student, look into volunteering. And if you are getting into the workforce and you're still not sure necessarily what your path might be, look for a company that does prioritize professional development in young engineers.
That's great advice. So as we kind of come to the end, like looking back, what advice would you give to your university self, when like you were younger? And what's something you wish you understood like earlier on in your journey?
Something, there's so many answers to this question. And I think there's so many things I wish I could go back and tell myself, but specifically something that I'm now realizing that I wish I would have known when I was in university is that achieving your goals is important, but the journey has to also be enjoyable. So if you don't like the process, it doesn't matter what you attain, it'll never feel like enough. And I find that lots of people in high stress jobs, I have friends that are lawyers, doctors, and even us as engineers, are very driven by this achievement, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, we all want to achieve great things, be successful. That's what drives us to study for physics or heat transfer until 3, 4 a.m. But a win or that achievement isn't forever. Like you work for 4 years of university, followed by, let's say, another 4 years of work to become a professional engineer, but that shine only lasts for a little while. So, I mean, I'd say start now finding happiness and fulfillment in the process. Even those struggly study nights end up being super enjoyable when you do look back on them. Think about the relationships that you're building, find joy in helping the others succeed around you. Exactly. Feel proud about your accomplishments, but know that the accomplishments alone won't keep you engaged or fulfilled long term.
Interesting. I love that advice. So last question. Was there ever like any moment in your career that made you stop and really say like this is why I love being an engineer?
Yes. And there have been many of those as well. I think, firstly, early in my career, there were a few moments when I was out in the field with my first boss. spending some time learning about a creek we were realigning or restoring. And just, it felt so good connecting with nature in that way, performing pebble counts in my waders and surveying using an old total station, taking bank measurements, just kind of being immersed in fully understanding what the problem is to be able to solve it. I would say another moment was being on site, watching my first ever stream restoration design be built. Uh, and I remember taking my fiance to a site I designed after a few years after construction, and it was crazy to see how much vegetation had grown up. And it was kind of indistinguishable from a natural stream, which I felt really proud about. And I think less tangible would be all those little moments outside of work when you think really critically about something, like little moments of problem solving. You fix something by tying a shoelace around it, or yeah, you just think like, oh, these are the skills that I've gained being an engineer. This is why I love being an engineer.
Going back into the point of even like doing something that you're passionate about. Like if you're really doing something that you're like doing, I think every moment will be like a moment that you're proud of, like going on, like after you look at it.
Yeah,
So that's great to hear.
those are the things that keep you engaged and keep you
Mhm.
excited. And that's really what I hope to impart to the next generation of engineers.
That's great. And for me personally too, like I think also just meeting like people, like even meeting friends like in engineering, like at my university while I'm studying, professors, even like alumni, the students in like student groups as well, and even like mentor and connections that even like you yourself. I think those are also like little moments when you really like being an engineer. Like this is why I want to kind of continue going. And especially for in my first year, I've realized that you're all in the same boat. Like if you
Yeah.
think about it, like all the students, we're all going together. So in a way, like you build that community without even knowing. And going on to the future, like you never know where that can take you. So I think that's also a great point to like keep your connections.
And like I think also those, yeah, being passionate, having that positive outlook on things is very contagious. And so if you can be that for someone else, and keep their spirits high and keep them engaged in their own path, that's one thing that I like doing as well. So
Yeah, that's great to hear. So Amber, thank you so much for sharing your story, your insights, and all the thoughtful way that you approach both engineering and mentorship and how you really made it this far in your journey. And I've learned so much from you, and I know that everyone listening in will too. So thank you again for being here and for everything that you do.
thank you again for having me. And I've learned lots from you too. Much appreciated.
And for those of you watching, don't forget to like, subscribe to our channel, and comment down below what you learned from this. And I will see you in the next one. Until then, keep engineering.